Good morning, world. I'm Steve Rao, the host at Pod and Roku TV's World Edition. I greet you live from the All-America city of Morrisville in North Carolina, the 8th largest state in the United States of America. On this show, we talk about global affairs, innovation, a turbulent and divisive world politically, economically, as gas prices continue to rise, inflation at the highest in 40 years, and of course, a war in Ukraine. We greet you to this show. And today, before I begin my quick monologue, I have a special meeting today. At the invitation of the White House and the Secretary of Commerce, I will be attending the National Artificial Intelligence Advisory Task Force hosted by the White House and the Biden administration here at SAS Software in Cary. The National Task Force for Artificial Intelligence was created in 2021 by Joe Biden, our president. And the idea is to look at new job creation AI, America's competitiveness in artificial intelligence, ethics of artificial intelligence, and what will the future opportunity be for our nation, for our youth and our young generation. These issues and others will be discussed by some of the president's advisors who I'll be meeting soon at SAS, along with executives from the tech industry, where we'll have an engaging conversation. And yes, someone just posted in the chat that AI will kill jobs, but part of the conversation is how AI will create new jobs, because many companies like Infosys, who actually has a hub in Raleigh, is looking at creating new types of jobs that can support AI. So although automation will displace many jobs, there will be jobs that will be created because of artificial intelligence. It just will change the role of work, the role of the call center provider. So we will see. But it's going to be an interesting topic. And of course, other nations are advancing their artificial intelligence. So it is important for U.S. national security as well, economic security, but national security, that we stay on top of artificial intelligence. I look forward to attending this meeting, and I look forward to briefing the global audience of my insights and what we can learn from it. And hopefully, we'll meet a few people that I can bring on as guests, hopefully someone from the White House. Now, my monologue today is just based on a quick observation of the rampant and aggressive tech layoffs that are taking place today across this country. But North Carolina has been hit hard. Google, Microsoft, Cisco, NetApp, a number of market-leading companies are all laying people off. And many of the people losing their jobs actually are my neighbors in Morrisville and Cary that are on H-1B skilled immigrant visas. There's only 88,000 granted by the United States to come from the nation of India. And there's over a 300,000 backlog to get green cards just about a year ago. I think it's even more than that. But these skilled immigrants now, here's the problem. If they don't get a job in 60 days, they must go back to their respective countries. Now, many of them are the sole breadwinners for their family, the sole income earners, and they've got young children in the schools. So their life has been turned upside down. We've been talking about immigration reform a lot on this show. I've written a number of articles on TechWire and in our News and Observer article here in Raleigh about innovation, about immigrants, about the value they're bringing to our technology ecosystem. But we often forget about the conversation we need to be having about global talent that powers an economy to do wonderful things. Moderna, for example, was one of our initial vaccines, and that was founded by an immigrant. 44% of our Fortune 500 were founded by immigrants. My fear is that if we don't provide an opportunity for these skilled immigrants to stay, what's going to stop them from going to Canada, from going to another country and starting their company? For selfish reasons, we want in the United States the next ChatGPT, the next Google, the next Zoom, the next Slack to be started right here in the United States of America. But let make no mistake, Prime Minister Modi, Prime Minister Trudeau, even French President Macron are all, in fact, they've told John Chambers this, working aggressively to be the place where more companies are created. Chambers predicts that over the next decade, we could lose 40% of the jobs that we know of today because of automation. But John also believes that we can create 15 million new jobs globally. Many of these jobs would be in emerging areas of technology like AI, data, analytics, robotics. Well, I think it's time to have an immigration policy that enables us to bring the best and brightest of those minds here to the United States to create those jobs. What is your country going to do about it? Well, we'll talk about a little bit about that today, but we're going to have a series of shows next week talking about innovation strategies for countries and what is going to make the difference in the war on talent. More to come. Today, we have with us Mark Lee, Dan Worthington, and a few others.
We've got the boss, Nick.
Yeah, and the bottom line, it's going to be an interesting topic today about AI. And I think that Dan Worthington brought up a point of job loss, but there are new jobs being created. And I think that's part of the conversation is that the role of work will change. And we know AI is here, but there's also ethics concerns about AI. You know, if people are going to start using Chat GPT and they're not really writing themselves, right? How are we going to know?
Well, how are you going
to, what's being written by a robot, right?
Steve, how are you going to know the difference? Because I think that there was a statistic recently that said that I want to say within the next 5 to 10 years, a high percentage, I think it was like around 85 or 90% of what we see on the internet will probably be created or have been manufactured by either ChatGPT or one of its kind of competitors. I think there's one that's called Bard that's out there, but there's already been some folks that have stumped or been less than impressed by some of the answers because the answers have been totally incorrect. I know that became a whole big thing that impacted. I think Bard is done by Google and something like that, and they got hit by a serious financial hit because they found out that the information was not accurate, and then that particular stock at least took a temporary nosedive because of that inaccuracies and all in that kind of space. And then there have also been some people that have wondered if they are not having, and I know Dan's going to love me bringing this up, but it has been reported that there might be both gender and racial biases depending on who's doing the programming as well. So that has been a complaint that has been out there also.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oh,
How could artificial intelligence have race?
Oh, no.
Let me tell you a little bit.
Right?
And the other issues to talk about today, we
I don't know
talk
how
about
that would happen.
Vice President Pence has been subpoenaed in a Trump investigation. We do pray for the 21,000 that have lost their lives in Turkey and Syria with the earthquakes. Just awful.
Oh, that was bad. Yeah, terrible.
Yeah, terrible. And I'm trying to think if there's any other big issues. I mean, I don't know, this Trump investigation just doesn't end, but, you know, here's another subpoena. Haven't heard from Vice President Pence much recently. Don't know if he's running for president. I guess he's considering it, but haven't heard much of him on that.
He wrote a book.
And,
well, he's probably running for the door.
He's running for the door?
The House of Representatives on the day of the vote, he ran for the door.
Yeah. I don't think he's going to go. But on artificial intelligence, see, chess players are big into that, Steve. The best programs in the world right now are computer programs. They beat everyone. But what just recently happened that just startled me is one company ordered airplanes that have no pilots. They're going to be delivering cargo around the world. Now, if you think about it, but see what happens, a lot of people don't know, they've developed the programs. If you ever watch airplanes land, they're automatic landing systems. They'll land the airplane in the same spot on the tarmac every time. They're much better than humans in terms of their guidance system.
Well, so, we shall see.
The what?
We shall see if that's true.
Oh, we'll see. But the thing
systems are only as good as the navigates and everything else. Now, listen, sometimes emergencies happen, and skilled pilots know how to handle those emergencies in landing and other things. AIs don't. They're unless they have a special program to figure it out. But I don't want to be on that plane, and I don't want my mom's heirlooms on that plane.
No, but your mom's heirlooms will be. Let's put it this way: you're not going to be able to stop the future. The future is pilotless airplanes that are going to be.
But you can't stop the.
all over the world.
Hey, Nick, we can't stop the.
Robotic airline
Go
stores.
like this to your computer masters. They're better chess players than anybody in the world. They're better backgammon players, and they're
Like diabetes water.
Nick, but I'm gonna come back to what I said earlier, and I know y'all were gonna give me a hard time, but I couldn't happen but bring it up. But these are some of the stories that came up recently. I think one was last year, the other was maybe about a year and a half ago. And when I say last year, I mean like literally about a month and a half ago. But engineers were asked to expunge all explicit racism from ChatGPT, and it may continue to offer implicitly racist or sexist or otherwise bigoted biases in its output.
Come on.
Hold on a second. For instance, hold on a second, Dan. For instance, when asked to write some code to assess if someone would be a good scientist based on their gender and race, the bot, that didn't say the bot, suggested white man only. That's what the bot suggested. So somebody answered the question, and the bot suggested white man only.
Right?
The news is racist every day. It was racist today. You know what the big racist thing is? CBS, because there are two black quarterbacks playing for the first time. Why didn't they just say we have two really good quarterbacks? No, they couldn't do that.
You have to be black.
Race line.
Racist.
So
CBS that is a historical moment. Do you know how long it took us to get a black quarterback? It was Warren Moon, I think, was the first one to go to the Super Bowl, and I think that was the Washington Redskins, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we have two good quarterbacks. No, we have two good black quarterbacks because we're racist.
No, isn't he part Indian?
So should we expunge that? I'm waiting to look at two good quarterbacks.
I don't even care what color they are.
Yeah,
I'm kind of excited to watch them play.
Media is pushing racism on us. I mean,
they are. They're
CBS.
trying to divide.
It's the most racist thing in the world.
They're trying to divide.
I can't believe it.
Well, you said they're trying to divide us, but I want to come back to the chatbots because isn't the aren't most chatbots actually women, and just like most telephone operators are actually women, and that is actually something that the women are complaining about because they're saying that encourages this stereotype of women as submissive and compliant and all of that because you don't see that many male chatbots going and answering the questions.
I don't know about that, but I'd rather listen to a woman's voice than a man's voice. That's just me.
Yeah, exactly. Programming that way.
They're generally nicer voices than men's voice.
It's like when I go get a massage, I want a woman to give me a massage.
You don't want a man to give you a massage.
I don't want man on man. No way.
No.
But call me sexist.
That's because we're sexist. Hey, Dan, you and I are sexist. Let's just get
I just don't want a man touching my body.
You don't want a man touching your body in the least bit or any kind of way?
No, because, it wouldn't make me feel comfortable.
I mean, if he just give you a massage, I hope he just give you a back massage. It's not like you're trying to do anything else going on there unless you've got some other intents going on. But I don't think your family would allow that, so I don't think that's happening.
Marka, let me tell you, I have my preferences, and that's okay.
Everybody's entitled to their preferences. That is very much the truth.
Yeah, I'm just glad we didn't have to fill out a huge amount of data boxes to get something. Since I got COVID, they gave me this drug. It's called Plaxvid or whatever. Apparently, it's a pretty good drug that if you take it over several days, you have a 0.8% chance of dying, as opposed to 6% chance. I like 0.8 better than 0.6. I always look at the math, and hopefully it works. What?
You lose weight and you won't get COVID.
Hey, you're right. Do what? Lose weight?
It's supposed to be for diabetes.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm losing weight, so that was good.
So, guys, I had one question to ask you, and I've got to leave in about 2 minutes. But go ahead and talk about those other issues, and I will briefly on Monday when I get back from the AI meeting of what happened, what I learned.
Brag about being there with the president, Kamala. I know.
Task force, along with what's
busy
going on with this whole AI strategy. The question I was asked on the radio the other day was, why are we having Mark, if you think it's because, I think it's because that I think it's because we ramped up so fast in tech during COVID that we actually hired so many people, but now Is it that the tech industry is trying to come down to pre-COVID levels, and that's why they're just downsizing back to the way it was? And also, do you all think it's the remote workforce? Do you think that that's actually reducing the number of jobs? What do you all think about that? Why is
I think
tech laying so many
laying them
people
off. They want them to come back to the office, and they don't want to go back to work. They're firing them.
Oh, really? You think that's it? But see,
Yeah.
Disney did 6,000, 7,000 person layoff.
7,000 jobs, Disney, yeah.
Bibbidi
Yeah.
bobbidi boo.
Yeah, and I'm not
none of
sure.
us are economists, but none of us are economists. But here's the other question that I would pose, and I don't really know the answer, is during an economy like this where you have inflation, do you need to increase the unemployment?
No,
Because isn't that a problem with because right now we have low unemployment but high inflation.
yeah, but
Inflation is when you have high
inflation's
unemployment.
down.
And, I don't know.
All right. So what was happening is a lot of these companies were paying ridiculous wages for some of these software engineers. It's just like any company. They unload those people and bring on other people they can pay less. It's really that simple. I mean,
Oops.
and this is why they bring in people from India and other places, right? They can buy them cheaper. They can buy skilled labor in the United States,
It's true.
software engineers in the United States. That's what's happening, Steve, and that's why I'm not really in favor of helping your people out. Sorry.
Yeah, but that's
Well,
actually
yeah, but I
true.
think
What
that-
happened is the
yeah.
Indian engineers
Let my people go.
cheaper than the American engineers.
Yeah, hire the American engineers. You know,
Yeah, but
For
thing
me,
is,
wait a minute. Haven't y'all always told me, because y'all have brought this up when I brought up affirmative action and other things, that you want to hire the best, and if the best are coming from India or they're coming from Nigeria, if they're coming from Timbuktu, doesn't that go against this whole notion of
Mark,
meritocracy and all of that? Because if they're the best, they're the
that's
best.
not what he's saying. You have two engineers that are equal. One in India will work for this, one in America will work for that.
who
if
am I
you're-
going to hire?
Well, you hire the one from India because he's cheaper. Or
No,
You-
that's not necessarily true though. Now there's labor. So the
Steve,
program was abused in the past.
IBM, who we try to work with, but they're next to impossible,
Right.
have more people working in India than they do the United States of America.
But,
So
the,
what
but the
you do,
problem
right,
is this. The
bring 'em
problem
in.
is this. My
Thank you
last
very
point
much.
today is that
Hire them outside.
Yeah, that's
IBM
a-
is really
Steve,
Well, the call centers are in India.
Hold on
now.
a second, Steve. I
Yes,
want to hear
sir.
Steve's counter argument because, like
Well,
I said, I do know.
well, it's not. I mean, look. I mean, first of all, the skilled immigrant visa program was abused for many years, where people were just using it as a way to bring in cheaper labor. So we
Right.
definitely don't want to do that. If there's an American engineer that's been educated, that's gone through the university, we want to give them the first right of refusal to get the job. I think the challenge is, though, you can have both. You can have the pipeline of skilled immigration talent here and those that are going through the American system to, fuel economic growth. Because the fact is that we don't have enough engineers. We're not producing enough engineers in the U.S. today
That's
to
true.
meet the demand. And so that's the problem, right? Now, if we were able, Congressman Krishnamurti had some good ideas from Chicago of when we process these visas, having more money going into a training fund where we can actually train more of our own homegrown university graduates. I agree with you, Dan. I would like to hire American engineers every day of the week and on Sunday. The fact of the matter is, we
Not
don't
on
have enough to do all of these jobs. And so the fact that these Indians are working so hard, they're educated. I mean, one of my colleagues, Satish Garamella, this guy's got 2 master's degrees in data science. He's a statistician. Heck, he said Georgia Tech was his backup. He's such a brilliant statistician. He could be living in Mumbai, but he's right here as a city councilman in Morrisville, bringing so much value. So that educational edge that they have in India, why are they producing so many engineers? And why are these engineers so advanced when they come into the shores of the U.S.? They're just I'm telling you, based on my experience, they're not 2 or 3 steps ahead. They're like 10 steps ahead.
But that's because they have tons of people. I mean, you have to look at it.
It's a big country and everything.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
Steve,
how many billion do they
They
have?
have 1.4 billion people. We have like 400 million. Then if you look at if you just do a natural distribution curve, they have more of the top end than we do.
More intelligent people than we
They're
do.
more
by-
intelligent people than we do.
But we
Just
do
like-
have great engineering schools here, like Georgia Tech,
do.
MIT, NC
Well, they
State.
have the Indian Institute of Technology, IIT.
But the Democrats have the plan to make the American people absolutely stupid. And that's their goal. They're trying to make everyone so stupid that they can't even compete in the global community.
That's true,
But,
unfortunately.
but is
Now,
that
we're
the
not
goal?
saying
Is that the goal of the Democrats, or is that the goal of
Not
the
to
education
have
system and a
Americans
number of
study
other
the
things?
hard
I would
science.
agree that the education
Study the
system
soft
needs some
science.
serious
I'll get
work
to
and
talk
all
about that.
Let's
in
dumb
that
down
space. But I don't
all
think that
the
that's a
schools.
Democratic agenda
Dumb
or a
down.
Republican agenda. I think
You
that
guys,
that's
I'm going to head off. Sasha, start quick update on Ukraine and Russia before I head off.
Okay, there's a lot of talk about imminent Russian advance coming up. Nobody knows when and where and what it's going to be, but there are a lot of talk about that. Then there are a lot of paid Putin clowns coming up with all different theories. Why? Yeah, there are a lot of them. You know that there are a
The
lot
Wagner Group, right?
of. Not only that. There are some politicians,
yeah,
even
because
Ronald McDonald, you name
all
it.
kind of useful idiots who are some of them at least smart to get paid and sometimes pretty good money. A lot of them are not paid
Would be
anything.
me.
Hey, Sasha, along those same lines, and I brought it up yesterday. By the way, that group of folks that wanted to pull out the Ukrainian aid were all Republicans, by the way. I think it was like a 12-member group and everything. And they did include Marjorie Taylor Greene and some of the others. I think Miss Boebert was on that list as well. So I was just
Boebert?
wondering.
Yourself? Really? Oh my God! How dare she?
Well, they're wackadoodles as far as I'm.
Listen, let's get serious. The West, including the United States, made a decision to finish with Putin. That's why Ukraine will be supplied and is being supplied. Actually, Canada already sent its Leopards tanks to Ukraine. They're already there. So everything is being prepared to attack Russians, humiliate
Well,
Russia.
I tell you who's really happy about this, Sasha. You know, the military-industrial complex in the United States
Absolutely.
is
Yes.
absolutely thrilled about all this money.
Absolutely. But guess
all
what?
this equipment
Yeah.
is being generated.
Then
They're thrilled because you know what? The problem is that Trump was ramping down all the wars, right? Well, I guess us supporting a war in Ukraine is better than us being in a war somewhere else, right?
No, hey, Dan, I definitely want to get to Sasha as well. But one of the things that, and I know Sasha's going to let me bring this up, but apparently a lot of businesses and the Western businesses are heading out of Russia. And apparently, I think it was either earlier today or yesterday, definitely Putin gave them a sarcastic wave, as if to say, glad that y'all are leaving and all in that space. I did see that out there on social media. So is this going to be enough that our businesses pull out and continue to pull out of Russia in order for this war to stop? That's my
There's
question.
no money there anymore.
I'll tell you, Russia is running out of money. Their budget deficit is astronomical. We're talking about like 7 trillion rubles. Okay, you'll change it into dollars. It's still enormous numbers.
If there was money there, those companies would be staying. It wasn't a patriotic act, believe me.
Yeah, and listen, some of them elect to stay. Some of them run away from Russia. It doesn't really matter because those companies that are still operating in Russia, they're all operating at huge losses. Even if they want to exit, they have to pay wages for several months ahead to all their workers or so on. So sometimes it's cheaper to continue to be there than close entirely and pay so much money.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to go learn about artificial intelligence, but I'll
Well,
be back.
hey, speaking of artificial
Being in
intelligence,
the room with Democrats is a perfect place to talk about artificial intelligence.
hey,
And Mark,
speaking
I'll see you
speaking of
tomorrow at 6
artificial
o'clock.
intelligence, I know you got to get out of here.
6 o'clock
Steve.
tonight, Mark, our interview, right?
Yeah, I know. I'll be there at 6 o'clock. But speaking of that whole concept of the notion of artificial intelligence and all in that kind of space, apparently the Congress, our good friends in the Congress, are trying to get into the minds and hearts of the women of the world and all in that space. Not that that's the news, but I did find out this interesting. I'd love to hear Nick and Steve's thoughts about this. Hold on a second. I'd love to hear Nick and everybody's thoughts about this. But members of Congress have announced legislation on yesterday that will prohibit schools from receiving federal funds from collecting or requiring information regarding students' menstrual cycles. So that was from a report out of a news release from the U.S. House members. And the move came the same day that the Florida athletic leaders agreed to remove questions about said athletes' menstrual history from annual registration forms. So I guess
it is extremely important question mark. We have to get busy for the next couple of hours to discuss that, to see who benefits from it and who's not, and whether there is an evil intent.
I don't even care. You know, I have no.
Now, coming back to what you were talking about artificial intelligence, even that doesn't deserve to be discussed that much, because it's coming whether we want it or not. There will be hell of a lot of people who will suffer from that. Look at chess, for example, that all the best programs, they're all artificial intelligence programs, different engines that make people like Carlson look like a midget.
But Sasha, two questions I've got to ask you in reference to what you just said. One, I'm going to bring up the artificial intelligence, and I'm going to loop it back to the Period Act, which is what they're calling that thing and everything. But in the artificial intelligence space, everybody, you and Nick and others, get excited when y'all see two living individuals go against each other. Are we going to face the period at some point where we are literally watching the robots play against each other, and it's not Magnus or any of these other great folks competing against each other, and everybody being riveted in that?
Some artificial intelligence or top computer programs games.
Yeah, they have.
They are so boring. There are sometimes
already have
days.
A lot.
And they keep moving back and forth, and little maneuvers here and there. And at the end of the day, it's going to be a draw anyway. It's very, very seldom that one program can decisively defeat the other one. Well, last time it's happened was the AlphaZero against Stockfish 15 or 16th, when it's destroyed it. But at that time, yes, it was very much superior. And it played beautiful games, by the way, with sacrifices, a very attacking style, very pleasing games. But once it will go and the Stockfish, now next model, 17, 18, they improved, or so on. So now AlphaZero will not even be able to beat it, most likely. So it will be draws after draws after draws. So you've got perfect chess game.
It sounds like a perfect chess game. Hey, Nick, I was going to loop it back to you. The other question, and like I said, there's some other things I was going to bring up back here with Sasha saying about it not being important, but U.S. Representatives Adam Schiff, a Democrat from California, surprise on that, Ilhan Omar, a Democrat from Minnesota, and Sheila Sharfless McCormick, who represents part of West Palm Beach and Western Palm Beach, introduced that legislation named the Period Act. And they said the questions are a roundabout way of discriminating against trans students that would also subject cisgender students, also known as heterosexual students, to invasive government mandates of their private medical data. You are a lawyer. Is that something that folks need to be concerned about? And we already have invasive government mandates.
And you care. And you care.
I don't know. I don't know why Congress doesn't spend time. You know, they're so interested in sending things to the states. Let the states decide, or the school boards decide this issue. Congress has,
it is the state's issue. It's not.
Yes, the issue. Congress has some important things to work on, and they tend to ignore it. Like number one, of course, is national security. That's their province. That's the thing they should be working on.
I have a suggestion.
They're on the wrong thing.
You know the squad?
Yeah.
You should call them all shift heads.
Well, but see, Dan, at that level of administration, they should be working on important issues such as
I agree. I really agree. But
you're talking about the squad, and Omar is a member of that squad, and she called the move by Florida simply dystopian, immoral, and a violation of our basic rights.
Vision.
Omar needs to go back home and grow up. I don't know who she is, but I'm just telling you, if you're
well, she needs to divorce her brother first of all.
In a real organization, you have to
move into her district, right?
I don't know what district she needs to go back home. Prioritizing your time means number one issue is national security. Okay, that's something they should be focusing on right now. It's pretty important because we've got some crazies out there that want to blow us up.
Oh, speaking of crazies, we now have found out that one of Putin's allies, I know that Sasha's going to love
Yeah.
this because I've been reading news and everything, but one of Putin's allies has came up and said that apparently there's already a plan in place because they are going to name the United States a strait after Stalin after they win this supposed war that they're going to have against us. But they've already figured out what they're going to name the United States. So I guess it'll be the Strait of Stalin or something along those lines. But definitely that is one of Putin's allies put out there. I don't know that he's going to just walk into the America and that's going to happen. But there's some folks that might let it happen. But what are your thoughts about this notion that a Putin ally has said, we've already got plans for the U.S. It will be the Strait of Stalin?
Well, yeah, they do plan on renaming the Volgograd Stalingrad again. I mean, they're worshiping Stalin over there.
Although, Nick, it was renamed Stalingrad, but only for 3 days.
Only for 3 days.
It was renamed in Stalingrad and then come back to Volgograd.
The data I'm getting back, Sasha, is both Russia and China want to see the United States disintegrate. In the meantime, you have these idiots in Congress talking about collecting data for menstruation or something like that. That shows how far their thinking is off. They're looking in the wrong direction. You have two very major groups of people. One that's not a world power but has a lot of atomic bombs. Another one which is almost a world power and has atomic bombs. And they both want to see the United States go down the toilet. Okay. And they also believe we will self-destruct because you'll have idiots like this Omar talking about this stuff, not talking about.
But speaking of self-destruct, and I'm going to hear everybody's advice on this and everything. And we don't have the ear. Maybe Steve has the ear, but we don't have the ear yet of the president. I know I don't, and I don't think either of y'all do. But there are some meetings that are going on high power. One of the things we've heard about is that a lot of the states, both Republican and Democratic states, are spending a whole lot of money on different things that are important to them, whatever their infrastructure needs are, whatever their housing needs are, whatever their individual states' needs are, and all in that space. I was blown away by some of these budgets that are out there and everything. But that being said, I think it's this weekend, or maybe it's even today, President Biden is meeting with the governors of the United States. He's also going to be meeting with the president of Brazil. So if the three of us here, and I'll give my ideas as well, if y'all could sit down and tell
Democratic
president, it's all the governors, if y'all could tell the president what to say to the governors as well as what to say to the president of Brazil, what would you say? I'll start with you, Nick. You're the big boss.
Well, I mean, the thing is, again, we have to prioritize what we're looking at. And see, I see three priorities by anybody in the national scene. Number one is national security. In other words, we have real international threats right now. The world doesn't get along. And so that should be the first issue on the table. The next issue on the table should be the economy. Okay, because if you don't have bread on your table, it doesn't matter who is taking you over. And then the third is everything else. So first of all, we have to address that. What are we doing to support each other in terms of our own security, especially if Brazil wants to play with the United States of America? In the United States of America, we really, the last I saw, the people on this panel do not want to be taken over by China and Russia, who both want to take us over and see us relegated to a third world status. Number two is the economy. In other words, Brazil economy waxes and waves. Are they going to be moving to become another Venezuela? They do have a lot of these socialists there that believe that all the money should be divided equal, which is what happened in Venezuela. And then everybody left, all the moneyed people left, all the hard workers left. In Venezuela, which is the largest oil reserves in the world, is now broke. How could they do that? Brazil is also an oil producing country. So I believe the last, because remember, Brazil goes up and down, the last person they brought in was this socialist. Hey, give everything to everybody, like Joe Biden, just give it all away. And then life will be better for everybody. And it wasn't. Okay, so you do have to discuss about the economy. The guy has to get real that you do have people that if I'm going to work 100 hours a week and you're going to work 40 hours a week, I want to get paid for my extra hours and not have to divide it equally. Part of the reason why the capitalist system works in the United States is that people work longer and harder in our country than any other country, but they want to get rewarded for that. So you need to have a talk with them on that. Yes.
Back about 25 years ago, I remember there were in Canada, the richest men at the time in 90s were Reichman brothers, Paul, Albert, and I forgot the third one. And they apparently they built Canary Wharf in London, England, and Canadian Bank of Commerce (CIBC) gave them $2 billion at the time, was pretty big money, without even looking at their financial statements. So there was a lineup of banks who wanted to provide capital for them or so on. Now, at the same time, there was a study done in Canada. What's happened is that if take all the national product, all the wealth of Canadians, and divide it evenly between all Canadians, and what would that happen? Would that create a happy, prosperous society? And what would be the result of that? Well, the study ended with that in about 3 to 4 years, Reichmans will be in the same place where they were before, but a little poorer. There will be probably 5 times as poor. Now, the other people, as they were poor, they will be the same poor in about 3 or 4 years. They will have absolutely nothing. So essentially, this exercise, while meaning, apparently a result of that would be that everybody who was poor remains poor, and those who were doing better, they would become as poor as everybody else, but then slowly they would climb to their positions, but they would be 5 times doing less prosperous businesses than before. So this is it's Canadian study. Maybe Canadians were wrong. I'm wondering if other countries, even the United States, why not to try the same exercise and to see what's happened. And I think now with supercomputers available or so on, it should not take that a long time and efforts really to produce such study.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean that's game theory, but you also see that the experiments in socialism or communism, if it went that way, hasn't worked.
Never worked.
In Canada, hasn't worked in Venezuela. And so I'm not sure if he's going to be talking with the leader of Brazil. The first thing, of course, is national security and the security of the individual countries.
They will discuss period, I think.
Yeah, menstrual periods and data
collection.
Yeah,
that might be discussed, but one of the other things they might be discussing is our tit for tat with politics. And one of the tit for tats with politics is that the House Democrats have filed a motion to expel Representative George Santos, who, of course, has been accused of all kinds of things and all kinds of lies out there. So that is going on. And at the same time, there are issues revolving around Fetterman, who did have a recent stroke and all of that, and apparently has been hearing voices much like the teachers in the Peanuts character, and he said that he's struggling to adjust to Senate life. So I'm wondering, are the Republicans going to turn around and try to get him out? So we're going to have a tit for tat with the Democrats going after Santos, and the Republicans then turning around and going after Fetterman, as both of those individuals have issues that might cause them to not be qualified for the office in the first place. But what are your thoughts on that? Is it going to be a case of tit for tat with these two folks that are currently sitting in Congress? I don't know whether Fetterman's planning to run, but Santos is already raising funds for 2024.
Santos is a pathological liar, and anyone who supports and votes for him is supporting a fraud. As a matter of fact, the Republicans, including Mitt Romney, I have to give Mitt Romney a lot of credit, who basically told Santos he needed to go sit in the back of the room because Santos won that election on election fraud. He lied about his education. He lied about his job experience. He lied about bloody everything.
It sounds like Biden.
Corporate America today, he would be fired. Okay, and the Republicans need to wake up and show some grit. Romney, I give him a lot of credit.
So based on that, I agree, but Santos is a bad egg, right?
Yeah.
But Biden's equally as bad. He did the same things and has done the same things during his entire career, and yet he's still there after 50 years.
And you know why, Dan? You know why? I'll tell you why. His speech at a State
of the Union.
Union speech, no one Republican cannot do even 20% as well as Biden did in that speech. If you
Well,
take
but see,
all
Biden
your biggest
didn't write that.
biggest plans,
He
they
didn't
are
write
not
all that.
capable.
Biden
They are
didn't
not
write
capable
that
to
speech.
deliver the speech.
Speechwriters
His
wrote
speechwriter
That's
was
all.
great.
It doesn't
And
matter
Biden
what he
did nothing
delivered.
but
His
read it.
delivery was second to
And,
none.
I
And
mean,
no one
Biden
Republican
is
cannot
so.
do it.
First of all, you're Canadian. You don't know what you're talking about.
I know a
Number
lot. I
two,
heard his
Biden
speech
is so
from
full of
beginning to
lies.
the
He
end,
didn't
and
say
there are
anything.
no
Whenever the Canadians
Republicans
watch this,
left.
Dan,
I don't
They're
really
not
Chinese
understand.
watch that.
That's
why
why.
you're doing it.
That's why if he will run, he will defeat
You're
any Republican,
You're
anybody.
absolutely wrong. He
No, you're
he barely has a majority of his Democrats who will.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. His delivery is second to none. He knows what he's talking about, and I'm surprised because he's 80 years old, so he will be 82 when he will run.
Well,
But
and he was really
he
up
will
and
win.
doing all
But
this
he will
stuff.
win. He will win by default. There is no
Hold on
much in all
a second. Hold on a second. I want to get back to. Hold on. I want to get back to topic here and everything.
Joe Biden. You
Hey,
have
I want to
love
get back to
affair
topic
with Joe
here,
Biden.
and I actually wanted to get to a question for
And you hate
Nick. I
Trump.
know it's one of his important issues that he talks about all the time, and apparently the Senate Majority Leader is putting some distance between the Republican Party and the plan to rescue America proposed by Senator Rick Scott of Republican out of Florida, because there's this notion that we might be sunsetting Medicare and Social Security, because Scott, who unsuccessfully challenged McConnell for that Senate GOP legislation leadership, introduced a 12-point agenda for Republicans last year that included a call to sunset all federal legislation in 5 years, saying if a law is worth keeping, Congress can pass it again. Biden and other Democrats have used that as a way to accuse Republicans of planning to sunset Social Security and Medicare. But and that's where McConnell is going. He said, unfortunately, that was the Scott plan. That's not the Republican plan. But
Thank
is
you,
there
Mark.
any fear that we need to have that happen?
Don't spend so much reading whatever Republicans are discussing or proposing for anything. It's a party with absolutely no ideas. It's a party without leaders. They are absolutely incapable of doing
Spoken like a true Canadian.
all what they want to do.
Canadian.
They
You
will
don't even have a right to vote.
They
in
will
this country.
investigate Biden, his
Your
son,
opinion matters
his
not
wife,
at
his
all. Your
relatives.
opinion
That's
matters
all
not
on
at all.
their agendas. That's all what they're going to do.
Pasha,
I never heard anything
I
of
like it. You can
substance.
say whatever
What
you
they're
want
gonna
to say about Ukraine.
They're just
But
bunch
you
of
don't have
idiots.
any opinion in the United States. You're Canadian. You
I
love
am.
Biden. You
Yeah.
hate Trump. You must love Trudeau. You must be a
Well, I think
Trudeau
he said
lover.
No,
he can't
that's
stand
not
Trudeau.
true at all. I think
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
he's
Biden
made it very
is
clear that
Trudeau.
he cannot stand Trudeau.
Well, I can't stand Trudeau either.
Trudeau is
We-
just as
we
bad
agree
as Trump.
about that.
Trudeau is ruling a country 10 times smaller than U.S. That's
Yeah,
why
true.
this, what's his name?
Well, I
Trump,
mean, it's interesting that
vicious
Steve
and
said something
so
about
horrible for the
Macron,
United
Trudeau,
States.
and Biden get together on some issue. It's not surprising, right? They're all of the same ilk. They're all globalists. They're all out to destroy the sovereignty of their own countries and undermine the independence of their own people. That's their goal. So if you want to support Biden and his agenda, thinking he's such a great guy, you go ahead, but you're wrong. It would be like supporting Trudeau.
Look,
which you hate.
Dan, I'm not supporting Biden. I know many of his weaknesses as anybody else. But there is no one better in the United States. That's period. No one better in Democratic Party. No one better in the Republican
Oh
Party.
man,
Look,
are
you
you
win by default.
Are
And
you
I don't know.
I hear you saying you're going to win by
Dan,
default. Speaking
Dan,
of,
hey,
hold on a second. Hold on a second. Speaking of winning by
They
default,
go
well,
for
one,
the
I never got Nick's answer as to whether that's something that people need to be concerned about, because I know you talked about it several times on this show and others around the notion of Social Security disappearing and some of these other things disappearing.
Well, it will disappear because nobody cares about it. I think that's
it'll disappear just on its own weight if something's not done.
Yeah, see, and that's an issue that should be discussed by Congress, because if you look at the math on Social Security and Medicare, the Medicare Trust Fund runs out of money this decade. And last I saw, sometime this decade, they just don't know when. And they won't address it. Notice that, and this is the reason his speechwriters were really good. Biden never discussed that, because remember, that's a tough issue. The tough issue is we got to deal with Medicare running out of money by the end of this decade. Did he discuss that in the State of the Union? No, I listened, didn't hear anything. You know why? because it's going to mean somebody's going to have to make some tough decision to save Medicare. So Medicare runs out this decade. Next decade, Social Security runs out of money. Did we hear Biden talk about this is a tough issue we're going to deal with? No. The reason why is because it's a tough issue and he doesn't want to deal with the tough issues. So what he did was brilliantly talk about everything else except the important issue. The important issues on the
but
table.
you said yourself that this is for
go out
this is
And
for-
immigration. You
this
didn't talk
is
about
your
Congress.
You didn't talk
Congress
about
has
the
to
big white balloon that
decide it.
flew over the United
What
States.
Biden has to do with that. What
Yeah, well,
Biden-
the white balloon is more interesting to talk about than Social Security and Medicare. Well, the real problem is, Sasha and Dan, as we well know, if you're going to fix Social Security and Medicare, you either have to lower the benefits, increase taxes to people, or do a combination of both.
You probably have to do both.
And
Yeah.
you probably have to do both. And the thing is, either way, if to sell this or basically talk to the American public about the reality of these systems is not going to be fun. Saying, look,
Well,
we're
the
gonna-
irony is the Democrats just gave a big raise in Social Security benefits to everyone based on this inflation adjustment, right? They
right?
couldn't afford to do that. They shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe a 3%, but not
Yeah.
the freaking big one that they did.
Yeah, and the other thing is what they don't do on Social Security, they don't do means testing. And what do I mean by that? Guys
Yeah.
like Bill Gates gets paid full Social Security benefits,
And he shouldn't get a dime.
and he shouldn't get a dime. We
Right.
have billionaires and millionaires out there, and some of them are my clients that have come to me and go, I said, well, how much do you make? This, that, and the other thing. I also get X amount in Social Security, but I don't need it. Okay, and a lot of them, they just don't even need the benefits of Social Security. They have so much bloody money, it doesn't make a difference. However, we still pay out Social Security and Medicare benefits to a group of basically decamillionaires, multimillionaires,
Well, they're
millionaires,
forced on Medicare.
millionaires that
They
don't need
can't
it.
opt out of Medicare. They're
Pardon?
forced on it. They're forced to take Medicare.
They're forced
Part
to take
A.
Medicare and they're forced to take Social Security. But if you rip those benefits away from them, I hate to say it, they ain't going to cry. The other thing is
Oh.
what we have to do is there's some work you have to do on this. Means testing on when you take the benefits out. There's some jobs that you can work until you're 70, 75. Hey, it's not a problem, you know? And then there's some at age 62, you're kind of washed up. So we have to look at that. And so somewhere along the line, rather than hearings on Hunter Biden, hearings on January 6th, when are the hearings going to take place on Medicare and Social Security? We have two systems that are going to go broke. Now, here's what's going to happen. This is what Dave Walker and I both predict. Right the day before it goes broke, it's going to be a crisis. Oh, we didn't see it coming. Oh no, we're broke. We can't pay your benefits. And if and when that day comes, they only have one choice: reduce everybody's benefits 20 to 30% right off the bat. Whack. And that's probably what's going to happen, because there's going to be no money to pay your Social Security, no money to pay your
And in
Medicare.
that way, there can be no blame.
Yeah, there's no blame. The blame will take place during the administration and the Congress at the time they deal with it, which will be in this decade. Medicare will go broke this decade. Why people are working. And the other thing is the benefits are too crazy. I'm on Medicare.
but may I
Money
ask,
career, for stuff. I get phone calls. Oh, how are you doing? I get little charts. I get all this other stuff. And go like,
How'd you like more money in your pocket?
Medicare? Come
Throw
on.
money at you. Throw money at you.
I would like to ask a question. You know that in Canada, the medical care is administered by provinces, and federal government puts some more money in. Okay, but it's provinces. So, what if in the United States will compel states to provide Medicare and so on, and federal government will put some money in to help?
By the way, that's another possible solution. Oddly enough, remember the United States doesn't get it. They are broke. Now, what Biden, if he was a truthful person, he would admit to the American public, we are broke.
And he was conscious. And he was conscious.
Yeah, right. If he was conscious, we are broke. Okay, we're 30 trillion in the hole, growing $1 trillion in debt every year. We are broke. Don't come to us for money. Instead, they gave 70 billion to Tesla. They gave 100 billion to Intel.
Nick, but is it just like, but Nick, is it, I know we're the world power
Then
and
they
all
got
that,
jobs.
but we're not the only one facing brokenness and all of that. I mentioned earlier that Nigeria
Yeah,
got
forget
broke.
issues and everything, and actually cash-strapped
Broke back to
Pakistan
nothing.
is having a crucial bailout deal that's going on. So I guess they're trying to get bailed out because they're cash-strapped over there in the Pakistan, right next to the big country of India and everything. So a lot of countries around the world are facing this notion of being broke.
Make
yeah,
India
but the
pay for
United States is also in that situation. But remember, his speechwriters say
Everybody
these are
is.
tough areas to discuss with the American public, especially when Biden just gave away hundreds of billions of dollars, if not trillions of billions of dollars, to worthless projects, not telling people the United States is broke.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, that's so
Yes,
humble. We definitely
the
need to know
states
that.
you say are
Oh,
correct.
it was the Recovery Act.
You in North Carolina, we actually have we have like $1 trillion surplus. I mean, you know, North Carolina, some of the states are pretty well funded. The federal government is not, because states have to balance their budget. The federal government does not. And so because of that, the states actually could do what you're saying, chip in a little bit, but we need to have hearings on that, not on Donald Trump, not on Hunter Biden. We need hearings on Social Security and Medicare right now. And that's what should be in front of Congress, not
Well,
Hunter.
you know, Nick,
But,
if the
a
Justice
question
Department
for
would do
everybody
its
here on
job,
the panel, and I know we're winding down, and I'm actually
Hunter
going to
Biden,
bring up something
then
around.
Congress wouldn't have to.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that are going on. And I'm getting ready to bring up another world issue, and I'm going to give a little bit of flowers to some people while they're living in the Democratic Party, and which might surprise folks. But they did do two amazing things that might even surprise Dan. But before I get to that, really quickly, is how much should we stay in other people's business? Because I know that Steve is of Indian descent. We've got other people that are of Indian descent, and apparently over there in India, there are several child brides that are desperate after a mass arrest. So there was some women, hundreds of them, that got arrested and are now stuck in limbo after their husbands were arrested in a crackdown on child marriages, because we do know some countries, including even in India, that is not as big a deal as it might be here in the West and in the United States. So what do we need to do? We just let India do what India is going to do in this space? Because the state government claims it wants to eradicate the illegal practice on that part of what's going on, because it's a state government.
A lot of those marriages, hey, Mark, they're arranged marriages from childbirth. So
Right.
what? You know, that their culture is different than ours. Why are we supposedly better than their culture? You
We're
know,
not
Well, also, don't forget that the sooner they will start their marriages, the more programmers they will have in
That's
they'll
it.
have
That's
programmers.
Help
That's
us those
assuming if they
programs.
consummate the marriages. But the U.S. has no business meddling in the foreign people's affairs. Okay, I mean, it just isn't what it is. But if it becomes something that is like
Almost brought us there.
Ukraine, where you're invaded by another country, then of course we're going to interfere with things like that. But it has to rise to a level of where it
A balloon.
threatens our national security, which
Yeah.
that does. Yeah, Dan.
Yeah, a balloon, like a balloon, right?
Yeah, a balloon. Well, the thing is, the balloon, it really does show what we get from our Chinese reporters, which I get every day. China does want to see the failure of the United States. They're indoctrinated from birth to go after the evil West, and they have all their list of arguments. We invaded Vietnam. That's a big one. We invaded Kuwait. We invaded Iraq. I mean, they go on and on about how aggressive the United States has been. And then they slap us on how our internal, especially our train system in our cities, look decrepit to theirs. And part of it, they're correct. You know, there's always some semblance of truth in what they're saying.
Well, that's because we're sending all of our money over there, so they can.
And that's the other problem, Dan, is we're sending we're financing China. You know, so I'm going.
But we're not just financing China in that as well. There's another thing that is very powerful that is built by and has a lot of weight within China, but other countries as well, called the internet. And the internet definitely is powered and done by a lot of electricity. So there are a number of people that are trying to figure out how they can get all this great information that we need, like shopping online, streaming TV shows like this, and a number of other things that are in that space, because it takes data centers to do this. And a large facility uses a lot of electricity. As a matter of fact, that little small country of Ireland, they're complaining because they've got more than 20 of these data centers in Dublin, where Microsoft and Amazon have built very large sites. great. So it is definitely impacting folks. And those
Actually,
environmentalists and other folks are trying to figure out, are we going to maybe find a way to lessen the power thirsty internet? So if anybody's got any suggestions or how that can be done and anything in that space, that seems to be one of the questions that is being asked, because there is a lot of data that is being used regularly, and of course it has got to be run by something, and of course that's going to be the electricity in the various data centers that I know Rex talks about on a regular basis. But there's this whole electricity grid that could pretty much break us down even more than the Russians can and everything. So what is the concerns around that space?
Well,
Russia
the
is-
data centers, when I was in Washington State, Microsoft set them up around, there's an area in eastern Washington that runs off hydroelectric power, which is really cheap. And they actually set their data centers in these little towns in eastern Washington that run off hydroelectric power, so they didn't have to pay that much for their electricity. So it's really up to the individual corporations to solve that particular problem, because energy can be cheap depending what sector in the world you live on. If you live in a place like in eastern Washington where they have unbelievable hydroelectric power that's basically free, and that's where they set up their data centers, and that's where they set up their servers. A lot of people don't know huge server farms are parked in these places with cheap hydroelectric.
well, and and those companies could be tasked with investing in energy projects to support their energy needs.
Yeah.
Nuclear plants, those kinds of things. The nuclear plants of today are now much safer than they
That's right.
were back in the day of Fukushima or whatever that was, or
Yeah.
the island.
The 3 Mile Island. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're a lot safer and a lot more effective now. And even the green movement is supporting nuclear. It seems to be, and then fusion reactors, when they get on board, that will be. I think that the key is to have the corporations invest in energy independence and clean energy as part of their corporate citizenship, no matter where they are. If they're drawing large amounts of power, increasing the demand on the grids, increasing the cost to everyone else, they should be investing in a solution.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Getting ready to wind up everything. The two things I was going to mention really quickly are Angie Craig, a Minnesota Democrat, apparently was assaulted in her area up there in D.C., and she actually got back at the assailant by throwing some hot coffee on said assailant.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah,
good for her.
Trying to go after her, and she was like, "I'm not having that." She's actually the co-chairwoman of the Congressional Equality Caucus. And the other thing I was going to mention really quickly is apparently the San Francisco mayor launched a very starch attack in her State of the Union address that was actually talking about support for the police, crackdowns on drugs, which would probably also crackdowns on the rising amount of prostitution and
They're just lining up
in that area as well.
Yeah.
But she
Can't
definitely
believe it.
said that she was supportive of the police, and I know that sometimes Democrats don't always say that, but she definitely came out very supportive of the police force.
Well, it has to get really bad before they do.
Yeah, and what's wrong with this Sarah Huckabee or whatever her name is, this Arkansas governor? Okay, her rebuttal was horrible. It was basically
that's what Steve said, and I know we got to get ready to go to.
It was by any stretch. Look, if she really wanted to attack, she was attacking the person Biden, not the policies. If she really,
like I said, I watched this TikTok video, or it was a YouTube video of Boebert, who was literally sitting on the streets talking about how bad the press was, and how bad the reaction was, and what Biden should have said, and all of this. So they were all in that same category. Last thing, because we got to get ready to go over to Sasha's show, is y'all did mention it earlier. There is a Super Bowl game on this Sunday. I don't have a dog in the fight, but I do have friends that are rooting for Philadelphia, so I'll probably go with the NFC
It'll
team.
be fun.
It'll be a fun game either way. And the show with Rihanna should be amazing as well. And all in
I don't know about Rihanna, but
and it's much cheaper than going to the concert, like we said a couple of days ago. And
yeah,
all in that way. But is
buy
any
your big
here
screen
before we shift over to
Best
Sasha's
Buy,
show, have any
Walmart,
picks on
no
the
matter
game?
where.
So
Get your
Nick,
big
any
screen.
pick on the game?
Waste your money on tickets, right? Get the big screen. Surround sound even. It would really be very much cheaper, and you can use it over and over again.
Yeah, that is very true. I don't know if Nick or Sasha have a pick on the game, but if not, we're going to get out of here and get ready to go. Just say what?
Kansas City.
Kansas City, it will be. So if we heard Kansas City, I'm thinking it's going to be Philadelphia, but it could be either one, and it'll be a good game, hopefully, because I can't stand Super Bowl blowouts. But let's get ready to get on out of
Yeah, I
here.
hope it's close.
Yeah.
Take care.
Take
Yeah,
care.
bye.